Big a problem is the relatively cheap cost of coal. Well, I talked about that with Rob Barnett. He's a senior energy economist with Bloomberg Government.
Right. I think you're getting at the core of the debate. You're talking about the markets reacting to demand being lower as a result of policy, and I think there's an element of truth to what you're saying, and I think that's why policymakers are so focused on the issue of coal use. In the United States, we have a policy that's on the books that says you can't build a new coal plant unless it has carbon capture and storage technology included. And President Xi here in the United States announced a cap and trade program that China is planning to implement in the near future. So when you have either some kind of restriction on coal use or market signals like a cap and trade program, that incentivizes that shift away, even though the economics might be compelling without those policy regimes.
Well, let me talk to you about the economics, because you're bringing up a really important point. You know, if the price drops, and yet then you look at solar and wind, in many cases, in a lot of these countries, there's subsidies to kind of engender the growth of that. I mean, all of these economics, they do end up playing into all of this. Are there concerns on your part about that?
I think the folks who really want to see wind and solar take off, you know, they're advocates of putting such policies in place. In the United States right now, we have in the Congress a debate about taking tax incentives that are used by the oil and gas industry and handing them to the folks who produce wind and solar. And, you know, we've got this perennial debate. It comes up every couple of years here in the U.S. It's a similar debate globally. The markets aren't the sole arbiter of what gets done when you're talking about energy decisions.
So if we look at supply and demand, what's the flip side when we talk about solar and wind? Is there a downside to that in that respect when we're talking about purely the dollars and cents?
I think on the question of solar, it's a really good news story. I mean, we've seen the cost decline for solar something like 80% over the last few years. I mean, so you have such a strong technology component. People refer to it as sort of the Moore's law of solar. And when you've got technology just coming off the assembly line and getting cheaper as you make that next incremental unit, solar has economics that are rapidly moving towards competing without subsidy.
You say it's a positive story, but we've got some video to show folks. We've seen coal miners organize several large protests around the world, a recent demonstration in Poland, in fact. One worker said in the past, mines were associated with a future, with the confidence in planning a future life. But today it is only a job, and I don't know if I will still be working tomorrow. How big a problem is this for coal miners? And we're not just talking about coal miners in Poland, we're talking about coal miners all around the world, and we do know that in a coal mine, there's a lot of workers associated with it. I've been to wind facilities. They put them up. They're there. You maybe have a guy drive around and guard it. It doesn't seem to be as many jobs. What about that equation?
You're hitting on a very real priority for folks who work in the mining business. And one of the reasons U.S. doesn't have a comprehensive climate policy is because of the vested interests, some of the miners and other folks who help to shift the debate towards jobs. I think that President Obama and their administration would point out that there's a booming solar business here in the U.S. There are lots of jobs involved in the installation of solar here in the U.S. Manufacturing, not done so much here in the U.S. And so a lot of the discussion in the developed world really does focus on how do you retrain people to prepare for a future that looks different than the past.
All right, Bob Barnett, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.